Which does the patient better understand? Their clinical treatment or their personal experience? I've asked that question 1,000 times, and every time, unanimously, every caregiver says it's the personal experience. There are now 17 websites where your patients and their families can post their comments about you, and they do it. And let's go back to that, folks. You are defined by your customers based on their personal experience. So we're in a whole new era of understanding. Star ratings now are a fact of life. And for organizations today to be successful, they need to master these skills, and we better darn well know how to deliver a 5-star experience.
Those scores were nothing to be proud of.
Could not seem to increase scores or to get any additional traction and improvement, almost no matter what we tried to do.
Our employee engagement, I would say, was all over the place.
You need to master this new science to improve the patient experience. So here's my recommendation. Deliver kindness care. And do it everywhere. I want to share with you 6 imperatives of how you can create a 5-star patient experience. For years, we've talked about patient-centered care, which is good. And we've moved on now to the agenda being the patient experience. But I want to take it to the next level, because the issue is really, how do we create a culture of healing kindness that is delivered by patient relationship experts? Core to everything that I teach are skills and best practices that help an organization build its brand, and that the brand needs to be about, we have a culture of kindness care everywhere.
The structure was terrific, and I guess even we were hopeful of great things. We were surprised that I think our expectations were even exceeded.
We've continued to use this work to change the culture in our employees.
The work that we've been doing has been extremely impactful.
5 stars comes from patient engagement. Nothing about me without me. And it is patient engagement that leads to word of mouth. But the key is to empower your people to own that relationship with their patients. Create a relationship first, then get down to business in reverse. We see every day the excitement and the joy from our clients that see their scores move from the 10th and 15th and 20th percentile, moving from 1 star to 2 star to 3 star. We see them on this journey, and then we hear their 4 star, and then the excitement in the voice when I get that call that says, we've just been designated by CMS as 5 star. And we go, wow, what a privilege it is to be their partner in this journey, to move to that destination of excellence.
The scores that we just received have just dramatically
We
improved.
continue to see improvement in our patient satisfaction scores as well as our employee engagement scores.
The employees are getting it, they're grabbing on, and they're taking leadership roles.
Because when you have a relationship with a patient, you connect with them in a way that contributes to their healing.
Well, good afternoon, friends. Good afternoon. Hey, Brian, can you still hear me in the green room there, my friend? Wonderful. Folks, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Dune Friends. Today we have a wonderful and fantastic friend joining us from near the Calgary area, so Calgary, Alberta. I'm here in the Sherwood Park, Alberta, and so we're kind of connecting the Alberta connection today. And my name is Dune Wynn. I'm your host today, like I am every weekday on this Conversations with Dune and Friends. And let me do a quick introduction of Brian's background, so you know a little bit more about who it is that you're hearing from before we get underway here. So I've met Brian through the Speaking Association, the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, but he has a rich background of certainly healthcare, customer service, and on all things employee engagement and such. So Brian Lee, CSP, Certified Speaking Professional. Brian is one of North America's leading experts in the field of healthcare, patient satisfaction, and change leadership. Brian is the author of 8 books, including Keep Your Business, Keep Your Nurses and Healthcare Professionals for Life. Again, Keep Your Nurses and Healthcare Professionals for Life. Satisfaction Guaranteed. For 2 consecutive years, the International Customer Service Association Conference has recognized Brian as the #1 related customer service expert speaker in the world. He founded Custom Learning Systems Group in 1984, which hosts the annual Healthcare Service Excellence Conference, now in its 17th year. Brian has been awarded the designation of CSP, Certified Speaking Professional, by the National Speakers Association. Of tens of thousands of speakers in North America, only a few have been recognized as a CSP. Brian travels 150,000 miles per year, has spoken in every state and province in North America, and in 14 countries worldwide. Some of his featured presentations include The Magic of Engagement, Unlock the Mystery of Employee Empowerment and Enthusiasm to Create the World-Class Patient Experience, The 6 Secrets of World-Class Patient Satisfaction, Create a Long-Term Sustainable Competitive Advantage. The HCAPS Hospital Choice leveraged the HCAPS surveys to become the employer and provider of choice. So with that wonderful introduction, folks, help me in welcoming our wonderful guest today, Mr. Brian Lee. Hello, Brian. How are you doing today, my friend?
Doing great. Thanks so much for that kind introduction, Dune.
Wonderful. Hope you're doing well during COVID time, my friend, and we're going to get into all sorts of things, but maybe fill us in on a little bit. Tell us what got into this line of work. Tell us a story or two that goes beyond the bio. How did you get into all this?
Well, I've always loved speaking, and when I was in high school, I joined an organization called Junior Achievement. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful group, lets young people form their own companies, learn about business, and grow. And I had the opportunity to take a speaking class sponsored by JC's, and I could hardly wait to go every week. It was just a delight. It was an 8-week course, and I got the bug, and really every opportunity I could get to speak, I jumped at it. So it was something that I always had a passion and a love for starting in high school.
Wonderful. Now, your voice went away there, Brian. So I wonder.
All right. I wonder if, how's that now?
I hear you now. Yeah.
All right. Good.
So wonderful. So you got into it again. Isn't it always the case when something that we are interested in, something that ignites us and excites us, often end up being a life-changing thing?
Well, I think life works one of 2 ways. Either we choose careers or careers choose us. Mm-hmm. There's 2 things I was not going to do in school. Number 1, I was not going to have anything to do with teaching. And number 2, I had 0 interest in healthcare. Yet my life now is about transforming healthcare to be patient-driven. So I think it was the latter. Healthcare chose me, and it's my life's work now.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And now let's go back a little bit further. Let's go back from the very beginning. Were you born in the Alberta area, my friend?
Well, as my brother, I'm a twin, and my twin brother Bruce said, we were born in the Middle East, Winnipeg.
Now, for those of you who don't know Bruce, this would be Bruce Lee. Now,
Yes,
the
there
other
is a
Bruce
Bruce
Lee.
Lee. He's my younger twin brother by 7 minutes. Actually, he's adopted, but whenever I tell him that, he starts to cry. So we'll let him think he's a twin. And we grew up in Winnipeg, and we persuaded our mother to seek the economic opportunity of the West when we were 7. And we were headed towards British Columbia, and thank God we stopped in Calgary, because it's just been a wonderful place to grow up, and so many opportunities here. It's just an exciting place to be. When I travel the world, people say, well, why do you live in Calgary? I say, well, have you ever been there? It's a marvelous place to be. As a matter of fact, Dune, what are you doing in Edmonton?
I don't
Calgary has got
know.
so many great things going on here.
Yeah, Edmonton is awesome. Sherwood Park is fantastic. But you're right, Calgary has a few things that Edmonton doesn't have. One of which is that the mountains is just right there. You can look out and see the mountains.
The mountains are 45 minutes from my door. I live just on the edge of the city. And the treat of looking out and seeing them every day, when you think about it, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, fantastic. And now I used to go to Calgary quite often, so often that it really grew on me over time. And so you're right. Every city has its own kind of things that we love, and I'm so happy that you love where you are. So that's fantastic. Tell us a bit more in terms of the healthcare. Obviously, we all are impacted by healthcare. Your focus in healthcare is the customer experience and patient care experience. Tell us more about how you got into that, when it became clear that that would be your life's mission or life's work.
Well, there was really 2 steps. One was I had this epiphany when I was involved in politics. I was a member of city council, and then I was a member of the Alberta legislature, and an experience happened that I decided I would to pursue speaking professionally. And then about 10 years later, I got invited to deliver a leadership program for a hospital in Long Beach, California, St. Mary Medical Center.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a privilege. And when I was done, the leadership said, well, can you come back and design a customer service program? I said, I'd be happy to.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back, and over the course of a month, I delivered this 4-hour customer service program to about 3,000 caregivers at St. Mary Medical Center. And it went over well, and people seemed to like it. And, but I stayed in touch with the hospital, and, 5 years later, they couldn't remember what I did, but they did remember the bow tie, and they remembered the term service excellence.
Aha.
So they contacted me and said, can you deliver a program taught by the front line to the front line?
Wow.
And we had just finished doing an innovative program for small business using Peter Senge's work, The Fifth Discipline, in
Right.
Winnipeg for 100 small businesses. So we collaborated with a very smart group of people at the hospital, and we designed this whole new initiative. We coined the term Service Excellence Advisor. So we take 1 out of 20 frontline employees in a hospital or a nursing home or a clinic, and we train them to be trainers.
Wow.
And then they teach in teams of 4 their peers. So there might be a nurse, somebody from environmental services, somebody from dietary, somebody from billing. And it's so exciting. We pick the winners. We pick the rock stars. We pick frontline caregivers who have a positive, soulful, kind attitude, who walk the talk and aren't management. Why not management? Because most frontline employees don't trust most managers. Mm-hmm. So we take that. And so at St. Mary, they invited me to do the program. Didn't know what I was doing, but we had this concept. We recruited 80 frontline caregivers from every part of the organization. And the result was magic. There's no other way to describe it. In the next 18 months, they went from 46% percentile rank in their patient experience Gallup scores to the 86th percentile. And that's unheard of. And so I had this, holy smokes, this is something I got to be doing. So I got invited to a hospital in downtown LA, and then a hospital in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and then a hospital in Port Arthur, Texas. And I said, this is what I want to do. Forget the corporate world. There's lots of people to help. I want to work in healthcare where we touch people's lives every day. And our mission, our creed as an organization, as we make a difference in the lives of people who make a difference in the lives of people. And that's the beauty of healthcare. especially with COVID-19, we've become how profoundly aware of how important the role of the caregiver hero is. And we get the privilege of working with people every day.
That's wonderful. I'm going to point out a couple of things, put a spotlight on a couple of things for our viewers. One is that, first of all, you are the first guest out of 121st guests. So 120 guests that went before, nobody put on a bow tie. And so you are going to be remembered for the bow tie, just like your story there, my friend. It's very unique. I love the colors. I love the fun of it, And the other thing is no other... I haven't heard from anybody who just slipped a very sort of easily and just roll off the tongue. You were a member of city council and you were on the provincial legislative team. It's like that's a whole show just talking about that part of your career journey. But obviously you found that this is more of your sort of long-term work into retirement kind of career rather than politics.
Well, who knows what retirement means? They asked the former Prime Minister of Canada, John Diefenbaker, we're going way back, when he was going to retire. And he said, retire? Why, it's not even 8 o'clock yet. So I have no idea what retirement means. All I know is, Confucius said, love what you do and you'll never work another day. And I absolutely love every aspect of what I get to do every day. So I'm having too much fun doing this.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. Now, we have some photos that we want to share with our viewers just to get a sense of the work environment that you work in. So this would be one of your conferences. I presume this would be all healthcare workers and folks, care providers.
20 years ago, we had an idea to start a conference called the Healthcare Service Excellence Conference. We held it in Calgary at the Westin Hotel. We had about 120 people. We brought people from all over Canada and the United States. But quickly it became apparent that we should move it to the US. So we move it around every year. And this was this January, which seems like a lifetime ago, in New Orleans. We had 450 people show up for the conference. They were inspired by the amazing faculty of 8 brilliant keynote speakers, 30 workshops. But I'll tell you, the highlight of the conference is we had everybody line up in front of the hotel one evening, and we actually had them participate in a parade down Bourbon Street. So It was an incredibly memorable experience for all of us. It was just such a joy and a highlight of our annual conference. I like to tell people that next to their high school graduation night and their honeymoon night, this will be 3 of the most exciting days they will spend in a hotel with somebody else. And I never had anybody challenge me on that.
That's fantastic. Now, you mentioned the 20 years. That also coincide with this photo here, hey?
Yes. Well, this was the good folks from Union General Hospital in Louisiana, and that was so nice of them to do that for us. It was a big year for us, obviously the 20th. And being in New Orleans, everybody had a whole lot of fun with the New Orleans theme. Wow,
that's fantastic. And by the way, your pronunciation of New Orleans is much better than my pronunciation of it. So you've been there. Tell us a little bit about, now let's go back a little bit, in terms of the speaking career, you got into it because you had that first experience that really moved you. Tell us something about the speaking career that people may not think about or people might not be aware of. Are there any kind of unique characteristics that you have encountered over the years, either good or bad or challenging?
Well, maybe I'll just start off by how it actually got kicked off. I got a phone call from the president of an insurance company, and he said, I'd like you to come and attend this black tie dinner that he had at the Ranchman's Club in Calgary. And so I was thrilled to be invited, and I was sitting around there with 50 of the most powerful leaders in the city. Everybody was having a brandy, smoking cigars. At any rate, they flew in a speaker from Toronto, a very famous Canadian speaker, he's author of many books. And the conversation around the table was, he wasn't that good. And I thought, I can do this. So I called up the person the next day and said, do you need a speaker for another event? And he says, well, go talk to our president. So I went and met with him. Very nice man, big, tall office building downtown Calgary. He says, yeah, as a matter of fact, we need a speaker for 10 cities for our 2 insurance companies. What do you charge? So I had just been to my first speakers meeting. So I pulled this number out of the air and he said, okay. So 3 months later, I was running in a 24-hour marathon in Edmonton. Yes, Edmonton, Dune. And at the end of running for 24 hours, I got on a plane, flew to Winnipeg, opened this file I'd been saving for years of positive ideas, stayed up all night, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, went and gave this 3-hour presentation called Whatever You Imagine to 30 insurance salespeople. Now, I got to tell you, I had no idea what I was doing. The content was embarrassing. But I did notice on all of the evaluation forms, which luckily I gave out, that everybody said enthusiasm, enthusiasm. So I loved doing it. I went back to my hotel room and I went, yes, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so that was the beginning of the journey 36 years ago. Wow. And it's been a gigantic learning curve every day ever since then.
Wow. Thank you. Love that story. Thank you for sharing that. And, it's funny how we all start in a career that we, as you say, sometimes it picks us and sometimes it drags us along, right? So thank you for sharing that. The photos are flashing by. We're going to visit each one of them more closely. But as you think about, let's go to the present time of COVID. I saw a photo of you traveling very recently with the, kind of big shield there. Tell us how COVID has impacted your business and what you've been doing to kind of work with it, Brian.
Well, that's a great question. So we had this fantastic conference and then bam, we were doing great. We're headed for the best year ever. And suddenly everything got shut down March 12th. And so it became evident we engage implementation specialists who are awesome professional speakers and coaches who are former hospital CEOs as part of our implementation for our programs. And so when COVID hit, we shut everything down. Our clients were absorbed and mobilizing every ounce of who they were to prepare for this pandemic. So the best thing that we do is get out of the way. And we did that. So we shut everything down. Of course, there's no revenues. Overhead doesn't go away. We furloughed 5 employees. We had to do cuts to everybody. And it was a very dire situation. But what we did decide to do was we realized that the frontline heroes were struggling emotionally every possible way. You think of every adjective that you can think of to describe a frontline employee, everywhere from angst to fear to overwhelm to exhaustion. They were feeling it. So I went out and recruited as many speakers as I could find at the time. And we started an initiative called Caregiver Heroes. And starting 5 months ago, every week, we release 2 5-minute videos, either on inspiration for the caregiver or leadership nuggets for management. We release that. We post it on YouTube and we make it available. We have an app called Everyone's a Caregiver, and the app can be accessed from a smartphone, a tablet, etc. So this has been an act of love. We don't charge anything for it. My team has been completely involved in getting it together. We have we've released 84 videos so far, and we're going to continue doing that at the end of the year. So I can say first thing was it shut everything down, and then secondly we focused on Caregiver Heroes. So after about 4 months, the thought began taking place, and I started hearing things from CEOs like, it's time, we're exhausted with COVID, we have COVID fatigue, we want to shift the focus back to the patient. So we rebooked all of our, we work with about 40 organizations at any given time. We rebooked them all. We gave them a choice that we could deliver our programs live or virtually, because we've all been on this gigantic learning curve, learning how to deliver programs via Zoom and go to webinars and everything else. So we gave them a choice. about 85% said they wanted to do it live, and 15% said they wanted to do it virtually. So we've discovered there isn't anything you can't do that you were doing before virtually via live streaming. So we are back now in the saddle, rolling out our initiatives. Having said that, 7 months, it was 7 months before I got on the plane for the first time. And that was about 2.5 weeks ago. So it was quite the interesting experience getting back and trying to think that you're going to be safe. So I wore a visor. Of course, I wore a mask. I took wipes with me everywhere. I was doing whatever it took to feel that I was safe. I went on a 10-day trip, and then this is day 12 of my 14-day quarantine. So this has been a huge personal growth experience and learning curve and dramatic change.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for sharing that, Brian. We have some viewers who are loving this and express their comments in the comments. I want to bring them up again so that you can see them here. First of all, MJ says hello. So that's hello, MJ. And of course, Michelle says, great promo video. She really enjoyed that, your promo video at the beginning there. And MJ says, love it when physicians treat patients as humans and not as case numbers. Very touching. And
well, I like that comment. You know, Dr. Osler said in the late 1800s, the good physician treats the condition. The great physician treats the person who has the condition.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a book, at least last year, called Skillful Physician Communication. And what the book is all about is, as we like to say, create a relationship first, business second.
Mm-hmm.
And when you connect with the patient on a human level, when you have rapport with them, when you have an interest in them, when you use their first name, when you introduce yourself by first name, when you do all those things, you create trust. And when there is trust with the patient, they don't hold anything back.
Mm-hmm.
And they will tell you everything you need to know to understand and diagnose them and know what to do next. Now, I know nothing about clinical at all, but I do understand that we relate better to people that are interested in us. Yeah. So that takes me to my mantra, as I like to say, create a relationship first, then get down to business in reverse.
You bet. And in fact, that reminds me of a concept that I embraced long ago, and that is we work with others on a imaginary platform, and that platform is trust. If that platform is very low, trust level is very low, then that's where we're going to be working from, whoever we're working with. But if that trust level is quite high, then we're working in a very different place.
You bet.
So, Michelle, again, just like everybody else says, your enthusiasm and passion and energy is very contagious. So that's wonderful. Now, Brian, I'm going to maybe bring a video in to share with our viewers. This video is related to the award gala, I think it is. Tell us a little bit about that, and if you know the one I'm referring to.
You bet.
Yeah.
Well, at our conference every year, we have what we call the Summit Awards. And we'd like to think it's the Academy Awards for healthcare patient experience teams and individuals. Mm-hmm. We make a big night of it called the Night of Excellence. And all of our partners nominate their candidates.
Which does the patient better understand?
I'm sure the video's there somewhere. At any rate, they nominate their brightest and best. We have 15 categories, and we celebrate and honor and acknowledge them at our conference each year.
You bet. I'm going to pull up first of all, the site here so we get a bit of a feel for it. So give me a second to bring that in here. Can you see it?
There we go. All right.
Okay.
And this is the conference in New Orleans this year.
Yeah. Let's take a look at it. So very cool. Very cool. Now, the video is, I believe, this video here, but I'm going to go ahead and just bring it in and just play it here, and we can enjoy that together. So you do a lot of videos as well, hey?
Well, we live in a world of video. I guess if you don't have video, you don't exist in the World Wide Web. So, but we send this out to our delegates at the end of the conference every year.
Yeah, so let's take a listen.
The Healthcare Service Excellence Conference 2020. So glad you're here.
David Horsager here. It was great to be with you in New Orleans. So you know what I talk about. Everything of value is built on trust.
Carpe the chaos, how to get along, get it done, and have more fun.
With technology and with the millennials, of like this marriage of massive change.
The best way to have the best patient experience and satisfaction is to have healthy, happy caregivers.
Mindfully, intentionally present to the suffering of our patient.
Get invested in yourself and ignite your hospital. These people are amazing. I mean, they're absolutely, the audience is incredibly giving and wanting, they want you to be the best that you can be, and it was a giant love fest. It really was. It was probably one of the funnest things I've done in a long, long time.
Group about attracts, retains, and engages the very best talent. The importance of caring and saying thank you to the people who work for you.
People are passionate, we're engaged. We show up, we want to do the job. They want something from you as their leader.
Fantastic. So that's so you have that once every year, right? Every year you have one of those.
We do. And because of COVID, we've pushed our conference back to November of next year. But in February, we're going to hold a one-day live streaming virtual conference exclusively, where all our keynote speakers for the conference in November have agreed to participate.
Wonderful.
And we want it to be a model of innovation, of engagement. And the beauty by doing this virtually is we can grow and extend it from 500 people to 2,500 people. So we're calling it Reimagining Healthcare Engagement, refreshing the workplace with agility and kindness and compassion. So it's a new initiative for us, and we're going to take place in February of next year.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Tell us a little bit more about, in all of your work and in interaction with all these care providers, what do you think are some of the key things that patients are looking for, that if we can just focus on those key things, then they're more likely to find patient care to be really good for them, and also trusting the care providers? What are some key factors?
Well, a good answer to that is the golden rule, and that is treat people the way you want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
And what we know is people want to be treated with kindness and compassion, because for most people, healthcare is a scary thing. Unless you're going to a hospital for a tummy tuck, a facelift, or deliver a baby, you don't want to be there. And so it's a struggle for people. And they need someone to help them through that very difficult journey. And so in many ways, our mandate, our mission is to transform cultures that are task-driven and financially driven back to being patient-driven. And what does that mean? That means that a patient wants to know that you care about them as a person, and it's not just a job. It's not just a transaction. It's not just a task.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know that you care about them, you're interested in them, that they matter as a person, and they're not just something that you're a speed bump in their day. They want to know that you're there for them. And so I think most people go into healthcare because they want to change the world. They go into healthcare because they want to touch people's lives. They go into healthcare for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. What happens is the business of getting things done gets distracted. And here's the problem, Dune. For the past 2 decades, what's happened is nonstop, continuously, we've had a reduction in revenue that goes to healthcare. People are fed up with paying high cost of healthcare. They don't want to pay more in insurance premiums. They don't want to. They don't want all their disposable income to go. So we've been tightening the noose, and the demand for productivity of caregivers has never been greater. And so what we want to do here is we want to help create a culture. My apologies. So sorry about that.
No worries. That phone there is very traditional sounding, my friend.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say I own a landline. Sorry about that. The telemarketers got through. My apology. At any rate, so what patients want is to be treated with kindness. And I was doing a presentation in Illinois last year, and on the evaluation form, a young CNA said, I'm looking forward to beginning my kindness shift in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the idea of all healthcare providers beginning every shift as a kindness shift, because your patients are going to be delighted and appreciative.
You bet. That resonates so well with me, and I want to just bring in a couple of kind of thoughts related to that. When I teach people on how to be more effective and how to be more strategic, one of the key things I tell them is that we do not want to be, perfecting our work to the point where it's robotic, because robotic work is very, relatively speaking, commoditized. The work that we need to do, so we have to be willing to not be very, quote unquote, efficient at times in order to be more effective, right? So the idea is otherwise we'll be slave to this efficiency to the point of being robotic, whereas most jobs do not require just robotic work. It requires a human touch. It requires a strategic kind of, you'll be, at this level of efficiency, and then all of a sudden you just peak in your effectiveness, and then you go down again. So it's those peaks that's going to give us the payback, not the constant, I do task and next task and next task and next task. That applies to not only healthcare, but everywhere, I think.
I think it does. I think that one of the keys is, and really what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say, is that we want to deal with people who are authentic and not scripted, who are mindfully present here in the moment and not just doing this to get on to the next task. The problem is this: if you ask most, I've done hundreds of focus groups in the past 20 years. I've been over 300 hospitals working, helping organizations. And I've done hundreds of focus groups. And if you ask most frontline employees today in a hospital or long-term care, is this organization task-driven, financially driven, job-driven, or patient-driven? 19 times out of 20, they will tell you their perception is the organization is financially driven. That's the message they've been getting. And that's why leadership training, like the type of leadership training you do, Dune, matters, because most people that get promoted into leadership have never had any leadership training, and they for reasons of their own, they don't get it. What are the core skills that managers we need to give to managers to turn them into leaders? So I think I know that's your wheelhouse, and that's your expertise, and I think it's so important.
You bet. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to bring in some more photos here, and we'll hear stories from you on these photos. Tell us about this photo on the topic of, bring your whole self to work. This is, tell us about this photo, Brian.
Well, that's my sweetheart Chona and I, and that's a little celebration we had for a birthday, and we had just finished rebuilding the deck, so we had some friends over and had a lot of fun. It was great. We used the Beach Boy themes. My brother and I are fanatic fans of the Beach Boys, so you could hear "Help Me, Rhonda" and "I Get Around" in the background all afternoon and evening.
Fantastic. So you colorful, even when you go with the kind of casual thing. It's not only the bow tie. You love colors, it seems.
I do.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. Again, one of my thing is, I think we're more productive and effective in our work and in community. We just bring more of ourselves everywhere we go, bring more of ourselves. Now, obviously, we have to temper a little bit because work is obviously different than home, but most people err on the other side of it. Most people err on they don't bring enough of themselves to the office or to work, right? And that they could benefit from that. There is that travel experience you spoke about earlier.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, I was very nervous. That was a couple of weeks ago. And I didn't see anybody else on the plane wearing a visor. I consulted with my physician before I went. And of course, I have my mask. And I was just being very cautious, making sure I could sit by myself in a row, not beside someone else. So I sent it to a friend, and my friend posted it on Facebook. But that was what the rest of the journey was like, just being very cautious.
Well, if somebody was looking for you, they can just say, I'm looking for a guy with a face shield and a bow tie, a colorful bow tie, right. A multicolored bow tie.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So again, this is your common this is your workplace. This is where your heart is. This is where your life's work is in hospitals, and wonderful.
Right. So when we begin work with a hospital, we go and spend 3 days getting to know them, listening to them, doing some inspiration. We meet with, in this case, nurse and clinical leaders. We meet with board members. We meet with physicians. We meet with a representative group of frontline. We meet with department heads. These are a couple of rock star frontline caregivers that everybody raved about in terms of their attitude, and they had a marvelous attitude. And the gentleman in the middle is one of my coaches, VP of Process Improvement, Mark Berger. So there's usually two of us that go on site when we do this. And it's a beautiful jigsaw puzzle, getting to know and understand each healthcare entity to understand their needs and where they're missing and how we might assist them. So that's what we do. We just go and spend a lot of time listening to them. And then on the final day, I deliver a 4-hour, well, there we go. There's some physicians and board members, and we're kind of tired with the boring posing photographs. So I always ask them to imagine that they're in a musical called Cats, and they just finished their performance. So it brings out the silliness in everybody, which I think is great.
Cool. That's fantastic. You know, one day somebody should make a documentary of this line of work. You know, we see hospitals in a certain way, but you're sharing your perspective from the inside and from the developmental aspect of it, and again, enriching the staff and the customers. That is a perspective that we, the patients, don't often see. That would be an interesting documentary, Brian.
Well, you know, there used to be a TV series called Bar Rescue, where this expert in bars goes in and saves a bar every week. And it's not that I go in and save a hospital, but what we do is we reignite their passion for the patient experience by first and foremost understanding where they are to begin with. And you know, we put an enormous amount of time getting to know them. I guess that's why we call ourselves custom learning. Because you've got to understand honestly where they're at first, and then take them to where they want to go. So this was, again, another group we spent some time listening to. And when we walk out every one of those sessions, we are really knowledgeable. You know, the benefit of being an objective consultant, an objective coach, an objective listener is you don't have any biases when you go in. And the more you do of these, the more you become knowledgeable about what to notice and to look for and to listen that we know work. So really what we're doing is finding out what are the gaps and where are the opportunities for improvement.
Yeah. You know, MJ Smallman chimed in and she said, yes, when I said that you should have some sort of a documentary on the work that you do there. And you mentioned, you know, Bar Rescue as a similar analogy. You know, I think it'd be very insightful. Very insightful.
Well, there's clearly a lot of misunderstanding. Of course, if you don't work in a hospital, it's a mystery. By the way, this is a presentation I did to 85 socially distanced leaders of this large hospital in Indiana, in Vincennes, Indiana, and that's Rob McLean, the CEO. And every time I present, I have a little tradition that anybody who leaves with my card is entitled to a 3-day stay at my home. And I'm giving him an actual key. Now, of course, who uses keys anymore? But I'm giving him a key with my card and contact information, and with the hope that he'll come by and visit.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Wow. You know, I'm just going to take that in. I have not heard anybody who have done that, let alone speakers and presenters and trainers. So again, a very memorable and very unique thing, my friend. Wonderful, Brian.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Wow, that's what 80 socially distanced people look like in the room.
Yeah, this was a hospital. They had to go to a nearby university and use an auditorium to make it appropriate. We do give everybody the opportunity when we do these things, when we go on site, that they can be some socially distanced, some coming by Zoom, but they all seem to want to have the live experience. They're hungry for it. And so we have some ground rules, as they do. I mean, understand, hospitals are the safest place in town. Now, there's the odd exception. So sad to see what's happened with the Foothills Hospital here. Don't know what happened. But I can tell you that for most places in the United States and Canada, you know, hospitals are where they have 200, 300, 400 rules, guidelines, regulations. They are a whole lot safer than the local grocery store. And one of the things that we are doing with our hospitals today is helping them communicate to their communities about all the wonderful things they do to make it a safe 5-star experience. So this is a crucial time because there was a study done 5 months ago that said that 42% of consumers are not do not feel comfortable going to a hospital for in-person care. They don't feel comfortable going to an emergency department. They don't feel comfortable going for elective surgery. And the problem is, the longer that continues, the higher incident we're going to see of chronic disease. You know, people with cancer, people with heart conditions, they need to see somebody live. And there's this gigantic reluctance. Of course, people are worried. And what we're doing is, our focus right now is helping them win back every single patient, because they're not going to be financially viable to continue their good works if they don't win back and get their customers back.
I love I see the little flip chart you use in the back there. A little bit of a low tech mix into the high tech stuff that you guys do.
Yes. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember how to use a flip chart. This is the CLS family before COVID-19. Obviously, this is last year. Our head office is in Calgary, and there's just a wonderful group of people there. And we have although I will tell you today, a few work from the office, most work from home. But we have a marvelous spirit, a marvelous group of talented, dedicated people. And I got to say how proud I am of all of them who hung in here during the dark hours of the first few months when we didn't know what was going to be left of our business, given what happened with COVID.
Let me know if I spelled that correctly there, Brian.
You got it right. Yeah.
Wonderful. So again, I just love this sharing that you're doing. So Brian, hopefully you have a bit of time flexibility. I would love to extend it beyond the typical hour kind of thing if you don't have another meeting.
I've kept my day open, Dune.
Wonderful. You know, that marketing call there, I'm sure they'll call you back.
I'm sure they will. I'm so sorry about that.
No worries.
Now, this is our team. Once a year, we bring our people together in Las Vegas. This is our implementation specialists, who are our speakers, and our executive coaches, and some of our senior staff. And we spend 3 days listening to each other, brainstorming with each other, improving processes, and by the way, having a lot of fun. And so in the middle seat there, you'll see Pat Goodbury, who's our Chief Operating Officer. She's been at Custom Learning for 25 years, and our very talented, fun team. So we found that these meetings are invaluable. What's happened with COVID is we've reverted to doing hourly, weekly calls every Thursday with the team. And frankly, it's been marvelous in terms of, I don't think we've ever done a better job of communicating with the people that we work together with because of it. So it's ironically one of those byproducts of this all.
Thanks for sharing that. As well as I want to point out that you folks do take your own medicine, right? You do meet and you do keep sharp, and you do continue to evolve and develop your own craft, not just out there teaching and training all of the time, working on other people's challenges. You also look at your own as well.
Well, I think you've touched on a good point here, Dune. You know, when I travel and speak and go to hotels, of course, if there's a presentation going on, I want to know what's going on. And I often will meet speakers and I'll say, well, do you belong to CAPS, the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, or do you belong to NSA, the National Speakers Association? And when they say to me, well, why would I? I'm thinking, let me see if I understand this. You're a professional speaker. You are preaching personal growth. You are preaching attitude. You're preaching continuous improvement. And I'm not hearing you practice it. So I typically will give them a little bit of a pep talk about the value of joining your professional association, because my view is, having spoken to hundreds of professional associations over the years, my view is it's the winners that are actively involved in their professional association. It's the winners who go to the meetings, the winners who take on the offices of their boards and committees. It's the winners who go to the conferences because they want to learn more. Because at these conferences, they're getting the state-of-the-art information from best experts. So I'm a fan of people who have a desire to continuously improve in their own personal lives. And I kind of expect that of professional speakers. I think if you're going to be in this field, there would be enormous value in hanging out with people who share that same passion.
Wonderful. And of course, you have been a pillar of our CAPS community and certainly a great member of the NSA, which is, again, in the United States there, our sister organization within the Global Speakers Federation. But, you definitely practice what you preach for sure. You definitely take your own medicine for sure. And I'm going to move on to another photo here and tell us about this, this photo.
Well, this is the once in a lifetime experience, where we had all our delegates in New Orleans line up in front of the hotel, and we paraded down Bourbon Street. And
wow,
it's like, who gets to do that? Number one, and number two, who would ever forget when they did do it? So we were about 3 blocks away from Bourbon Street. When we got there, we couldn't believe that people were applauding and watching and thinking, who are these people? but it was such a wonderful, delightful, silly, joyful experience for us all.
Fantastic. Again, creativity doesn't have to be extreme. It just have to be out of the ordinary. And you could have went with the typical things that people do at conferences and whatnot. Or in this case, you have innovated something very, well, like you say, memorable, life-lasting. So there's more colors, and love it. And the trombone there.
That's a lot of the CLS family with the band that led us down Bourbon Street. So again, it was in the middle of a lot of work. We had an awesome evening that night.
Fantastic. So I'm going to ask a different question. Again, earlier on in the broadcast here, you talked about how you've been a city councilor as well as a member of Legislative Assembly. And I just roll off the tongue so kind of quick that I want to really just come back to that and say, what caused you to go into that career, that really those positions, and what caused you to move away from that and into your current focus? Maybe tell us a couple of stories that would be really great for people to understand. And bonus points if you happen to share any good, bad, or lessons learned from that journey. That would be fantastic as well.
Oh my goodness. Well, I was always interested in current events, and when I went to university, it was during the days of hippies and the days of Vietnam War and so on. And I became a very left-wing radical who wanted to change the world, and pretty angry about everything. And you could call me an angry young man. And I got invited. I worked one summer at a mobile home plant. And one of the vice presidents kind of noticed me because I organized a lot of committees, and asked me if I'd work on his campaign. And I thought, if I'm serious about changing the world, I should do this. Now, it was a right-wing candidate for our party. And I absolutely loved organizing grassroots. So I spent a year helping him organizing. I remember he said, you're going to be the poll organizer, you're going to have 6 zone captains, and under the zone captains, you're going to have 55 poll captains. And I said, wow, that's great, but what are all these poll captains going to think? Because I'm brand new, I don't know anything. He said, well, there aren't any, you got to go find them. And I said, well, what about those zone directors? What aren't they going to take offense? And he said, what zone directors? You got to go find them. So I spent the next year doing this and loved it. And he won. And that was a lot of fun. And then I spent a couple more years organizing other people's campaigns. And when I was 23, I decided, well, I should do this. So I spent over a year running for office, and I lost by 1,000 votes. And went and spent 3 years running 5 furniture stores. Came back when I was 27 and got elected to city council. And it was, instead of most evenings, election nights, I would write 2 speeches, one in case I won, one in case I lost. I spent most of my time in the earlier campaign not expecting to win. The second time, I spent more time on the speech, hope that I thought I'd win, and I did. And that was fantastic. So I served on city council for 2 terms. At
Is
that
that
time,
8 years, or how many years is that?
that was in the time 5 years. And then the whole thing of Western separatism blew up in Alberta. And so I decided to run provincially because I didn't support Western separatism for sure. And got elected to the Alberta legislature. I was 27 when I got elected to city council, and 32 when I got elected to the Alberta legislature, and had a marvelous learning curve there. And then, when we make decisions not to make a decision, then we pay the price. And I shouldn't have run again because I'd lost interest. I had a new mistress, I had a new master, and that was speaking. I ran and lost, and so people said, "Well, why did you become a professional speaker?" I said, "Because 8,700 people voted that I go do something else." And what happened was, the week after the election, we got invited to do this national training program for a car company, and so there are no accidents in life, and so onward, I went. I will tell you that what I learned about the difference between public life as a speaker and public life as a politician and public life as a speaker. Politicians speak to impress. Speakers speak to educate. That's why you don't see very many former elected officials making it as speakers, because it's a wrenching transition to realize there's a different purpose. When you're in public life, it's all about you. When you're in service as a speaker, it's all about your audience. It's all about the people that you're trying to improve. So it's a big paradigm shift in thinking. And I can't say I learned it very quickly, but eventually I figured it out.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think our viewers found a lot of value in that. The idea of one can transform between one career track to another, seemingly quite different career track, but one must deal with the challenges and wrinkles and the things that come up during the transition and all of that. So that's awesome. And you made a fantastic transition into a very successful speaking and training career, and really coaching and helping people really get to the next level of performance in the healthcare industry, which of course is a very important area for all of us. So thank you for doing that, Brian, you and your team at Custom Learning Solutions.
Welcome.
So I like to maybe go back. I'm going to go way back because there's this photo here that takes us way back. So I'm going to go there, and you tell us about these 2 photos that I'm going to bring in here. So yeah, let's go there.
Wow. Well, that's Bruce and I. I'm trying to remember which one am I and which one is Bruce. Which one would you guess, Dune?
Oh, well, it's hard. I'm just flipping the coin. So if I'm a betting guy, I would just say the one on the right. I don't know why I say that.
I'm pretty sure I'm the one on the left. We grew up in Winnipeg, and it was just, Winnipeg is a great place to be from, and it's a great place to go back to. I am so thrilled to see how well the city has done over the past decade, because I remember 20 years ago, there were fewer houses in Winnipeg at the end of the year than the beginning of the year. So the city was going nowhere, and then it's had a slow, steady, continuous boom, and I'm just so glad to see it. So that's Bruce and I.
And let me ask you this. Actually, let me point this out for our viewers. So this here is the young Bruce Lee.
That's him. And I guess Mother decided there we go. This is us in Calgary after we'd moved there. And a little story about these bicycles. My brother and I were walking home one day after school, cutting through a parking lot, and somebody in the car said, "Hey, kids, come here. You want to make some money?" Well, we had nothing. We said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, if you will sell these magazines called Liberty magazines," and Liberty magazine was kind of like Time magazine. It was a Canadian magazine.
Wow. Okay.
If you sell these, every time you sell one, you make 2.5 cents on a 10-cent sale. And every time you sell 10, you get 1 brown coupon. And every time you get 10 brown coupons, you get 1 green coupon. And when you have 1,100 green coupons, you can win a metallic blue CCM 3-speed bicycle. And we went, holy cow. Now, in those days, I want to tell you how poor we were. We shared one bicycle. In fact, it was embarrassing. It was a girl's bike, a lot safer, but it was a girl's bike. Humiliating. So we decided we wanted to win these bikes. So we went home and we showed our mother, and she said, well, where are you going to sell them? I said, we're going to go door to door. She says, no. Go stand in front of a liquor store. That's where the action is. So one Thursday afternoon after school, I went and stood in front of a liquor store. No idea what I was doing. An introvert on top of it. And I stood there and I said to anybody who walked by, you wouldn't want to buy a magazine, would you? No. You wouldn't want to buy a magazine, would you? No. You wouldn't want to buy a magazine, would you? No. I stood there for an hour and a half. Finally, out of desperation, I changed my pitch. I said, would you like to buy a magazine? And somebody said, sure. I went, yes. I've just made my first sale. So we would spend every Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, summer and winter, in front of 2 liquor stores in Calgary. Actually, there's 3 at the time, selling these magazines. And a year later, I remember we sold 1,100 in 1 month. A year later, they delivered our 3-speed metallic blue CCM 3-speed bicycles. And so we learned a little bit about salesmanship, a little bit about self-confidence, and a little bit about persistence, but having a goal. So that's those bikes that you're seeing there was quite a memory.
Now, I guessed wrong last time. I'm going to see if I can double up or in fact, see if I can get even. Was this you, my friend? Was this you, Brian?
Let's see.
Let me just...
The one on the left or the one on the right?
Let me just point it out quickly again here. I was pointing to this one here. Is that you?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's Bruce.
No, sorry.
You're 0 for 2.
Yeah, 0 for 2. So I'm consistent. Well, they say, consistency is a hallmark of quality, right? So I've been consistent. So thank you for sharing that. And you're right. Some of the lessons that we learn early on in life kind of stays with us for a long time, in some cases forever. And you've learned some very good lessons, you and Bruce, early on with your entrepreneurship and salesmanship there. And that the whole psychology of people, how you ask the question does influence what the answers are coming back at you, right?
Well, you know the definition of a loser?
No.
You're standing in front of a liquor store begging for money to buy a bottle of cheap wine. You go inside, you buy the bottle, you come out, you break it, and you try to bum the money off of a Liberty sales boy. That's the definition of a loser.
Wow. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more in terms of the evolution there, growing up in Calgary and whatnot. You've done a lot of international travel, probably a lot in North America and certainly into other countries as well. Do you have a story, an interesting and unique story that relates to your travels? A bit of a travel kind of warrior story. Do you have one of those top of mind, Brian, as you think about all your travels?
Yeah. So there was a time when my brother and I ran public seminars across Canada in 30 different cities called the 6-Star Series. And we would do a seminar every evening, once a month for 6 months on customer service. And they were generally sponsored by chambers of commerce, tourism associations, business groups, and so on. So we got invited out to Newfoundland, and what a delight it is to be out there. And we were sponsored by a group of shopping centers and so on. And so we're getting ready for this evening event. They had it in a huge high school gym. I think there was 500 or 600 people came out. All day long, the power is going on and off all day long. And I said to the organizer, well, what are you going to do if the power goes off in the gym? And they said, well, good question. So maybe we should get some backup power. So at any rate, they did. So I'm just getting into my presentation. It started about 20 minutes. All the power goes off in the entire gym. There's not any safety lights. And I want to keep going. So what I did was I had a flashlight with me. And for the next 12 minutes, I held the flashlight up to my face so people could see me. So they knew I was still there. Continued presenting. Eventually the lights went back on, and we had a few chuckles about that at the end of the day. So, and of course, if you ask a speaker about travel stories, there's lots.
Lots.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Now, had you held up your phone with the flashlight on your phone, it would have appeared to the audience that you were just filming yourself or something.
Well,
let me ask you a different question then. What would be one thing that you haven't shared widely or broadly that somebody or people who know you, even people who have worked with you, might be surprised to learn about an interesting fact about Mr. Brian Lee that some people might not know who might even work with you on a regular basis? Do you have any
well, I
surprise?
can wiggle my left ear.
Say that again?
I can wiggle my left ear.
Oh, really? Can you still do that? Is that a demonstration involved in our future here?
Let me see. I'm going to do it right now. There we go.
Hold on.
Can't do it right here. But at any rate, that now you know something personal about me.
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna do this though. Give me a second, because what we're gonna do is we're going to have you demonstrate. And so, being a demonstrator. Okay, now the spotlight is on you, my friend.
There we go. All right.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for being a good sport there, Brian. And tell us a little bit more about if you think about the highlight, whether it's in your political career, or whether it's in your current career, which is more, again, in the healthcare field. If there was a highlight story that you want to share, what might that be? Do you have one that's top of mind that says, among all the things that you've done, this is a bit of a highlight?
Wow. The highlight, I think, for any speaker is when you hear from people afterwards about that you had a positive impact on their life. There's no question about it. But I had something happen recently that I'm very proud of. 4 years ago, I spent time in Rushville, Illinois, at a hospital called Sarah D. Culbertson, and it's a beautiful community, beautiful hospital. And we go on site for 3 days to get to know them, to listen to them, to make some recommendations. And one of the recommendations I made was that they should put a team together of which to build a community fitness facility. Now, typically I wouldn't be doing this, but it just jumped out at me that there was such a need. So I recommended that they appoint a member of the hospital board, the school board, that they bring this group together. I didn't think anything of it. Well, last month I get a text message from the former CEO, and she sends me a picture of this $7 million fitness facility that is about to be opened in 2 months.
Wow.
And she was kind enough to tell me that the seed for it was the recommendation that I had made 4 years ago. Now, what happened was they put this group together. They started moving ahead with plans, but they had no way to fund it. And what happened was somehow somebody came out of the woodwork and made a $7 million anonymous donation.
Wow.
So not only is the facility almost built, but it's paid for. And on top of that, they haven't finished opening yet, and they have 400 members who signed up. So, we hear about these things after the fact. And we don't often, again, it was just a bonus to receive the phone call. So that was a delight to hear about.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And again, it's a reminder for us who always remember that our impact and our influence goes well beyond what we could fully understand or appreciate. And if you just put good stuff out there, sowing seeds, if you will, you never know how fast and how big some of the seeds will grow into, right? Or how awesome they can be.
You never know. You just do your best, and then you get these dividends from time to time. And of course, that's the reward for doing this, is you get to hear about how people have been affected. On a slightly sillier note, I'm looking back, and I know for sure that people who have met each other from my presentations, that I have been responsible for 7 marriages. Most of those people are still together. And what I was told when I was in China was that if you cause 8 marriages, you become a Buddha. So I just need one more couple to get together, and then my status in life will be elevated, Dune, and you will treat me differently.
There you go. So having heard that, if you were planning on getting married anyway, just make sure you attend one of Brian's conferences and come up and talk to him.
There you go.
Tell us about your website and any kind of highlight that you wanted to point out to our viewers. What might people find on your website, which is customlearning.com?
Well, like everyone, we are always, our website is work in process.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things you're going to find there that are new is 4 years ago, we developed an app called Everyone's a Caregiver. And the app can be accessed from a smartphone, a tablet, or desktop. And we license the app to healthcare organizations. We have a category, and on this app are several hundred 2 to 6 minute modules. These are mini videos on subject matters that relate to inpatient experience in a hospital, clinics, long-term care for nursing homes. We call it Transform the Resident Experience, and Caregiver Heroes, which anybody can access for free. So we tell the story on the website about this application, which we think can help us reach our big, hairy, audacious goal.
Mm-hmm.
And our big, hairy, audacious goal is that we intend to impact every healthcare organization in the United States and Canada. So this allows us to scale the works that we do a different way. And of course, there's so many benefits from employees being able to access this on their own time when they're not busy or when they just want to learn. So that's one thing that we're very excited about, and it's available from the website.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. As we round the corner on the time here with this conversation, Brian, were there areas that you wanted to get into that we haven't gotten to yet? I do want to squeeze the juice out of a few more photos here and have you kind of share some stories. But before we go there, is there an area that we haven't gotten to that you like to kind of veer to, my friend?
Oh my goodness. You've been doing such a good job of leading through this. Be careful when you ask a speaker, because forever. But I hope I've been allowing you to take a breath in between stories.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I'm really enjoying this, and technology has been fairly good to us so far. It's been stable internet and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So let me bring this in there again, and I'm just going to have you. Let's see here. Yeah, tell us about this. I'm just gonna go move on. We've seen some of these here, so I'm just gonna cycle through here, and so you guys get formal and all that stuff too in the evening there, Galen.
Well, this is 4 of our speakers. Mm-hmm. 3 of the 4 actually are implementation specialists with custom learning, giving their tough guy GQ look just for fun. Richard Haddon, Jeff Tobe, Tim Durkin, and Michael Huff. Again, we're just being silly together, and that's important. I think it's important in healthcare, in the middle of death, dying, and disease, mm-hmm. that employees, caregivers can be silly and have fun, appropriately, mm-hmm. of course. This is me running. My lifelong passion has been running. I did a marathon 5 years ago. I have a little place in Mazatlan, Mexico, so on the Malecon, and just the joy of going out every day and running, which I really love.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Wow, those photos are just. I'm glad you have some of those, because I don't think I have any. Maybe I have one photo of when I was sort of that age. Those are precious, aren't they? How many people? That's almost 30. Hey, that's a fair size class.
Yeah, in Winnipeg, that's obviously bow ties were a fashion statement back then.
Oh, look at that sharp-looking man. That's sharp-dressed man. Hey, fantastic.
Well, I will tell you about bow ties. When I first ran for public office, I was 23, and I was out knocking on doors. And I not only was I 23, I looked 19, especially the bow tie made me look like I was in Sunday school. And I'd go knocking on doors and people would say, "You're kind of young, aren't you? You're kind of young, aren't you?" And I'd give reasons and stories. And finally, somebody said, "You're kind of young, aren't you?" And I said, "Thank you." And so I never intended it as a compliment. So I stopped wearing bow ties for a few years, got elected, and I decided that if you have a little bit of momentum in life, that you can do whatever you want to do. So I decided to start wearing bow ties again. And I will tell you, in the first 15, 20 years, there's a lot of people that don't like bow ties. A lot do, a lot don't. I have a lot of fun with it. I've made it a trademark. I tell people, when people say, "You look familiar," it's because they think that I remind them of someone. I won't say Pee Wee Herman, but they're reminded of bow ties. But for some reason, when I travel and I wear a bow tie, people think you're a little bit more important than you are. And you get a little bit more attention from flight attendants, you get a little bit more attention from servers everywhere. And if you have colorful bow ties, it's even better. So I would normally not dress up to travel, but now I do, because it gives me just a little bit more of advantage of getting through lengthy days. And when you travel and speak, you're putting in very long days without question. So this has been a fun trademark, and I'm going to continue doing it. And we have a lot of laughs with it as well.
Fantastic. Looking great. Let me just get to the next photo here. And so again, always fun with your group there. Feel free, if you have a story, just jump in.
And this is all these folks are managers at Panorama Ski Resort. And at the very beginning of my career, I did a lot of training for ski resorts, and it was a blast because people know how to party and have fun. And we would go and do a couple of days of a leadership retreat and develop some momentum and some enthusiasm, some energy. And so this photo is pretty old. It's been around for a while.
Sure. I mean, the folks who find, rushing down the dangerous hills with high speed and all that fun, they're probably into fun as well in other
Big
aspects,
time.
right?
Well, the joke is that they work at ski resorts from sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I can't comment on that, but people go there for lifestyle. This is a group of our frontline leaders at a hospital. And again, when you take people who've never spoken before, but they have a good attitude, it's very intimidating. Speaking in front of an audience, and I'm sure you know this, is the number one fear for 44% of Canadians and Americans ahead of death. The only thing people fear more is dying while they're speaking. And I'm very proud to say we've only lost 3 or 4 souls since I started doing this. But so what we attempt to do here is get them in a class for a couple of days, have them do baby steps, then let a small group of them do a pilot, and then they all have to take that big gulp and get up and do the first presentation in front of their peers. And so it's really a personal growth journey for these individuals who, I believe, this enhances their career because it builds their self-confidence. It gives them a skill set they haven't had before. And what's interesting is we take these frontline talent, service excellence advisors, and usually in the next year, you'll see them being promoted as managers and seeing them go up the ladder. And so that's very exciting to see as well.
Yeah. So in other words, you're not just training them, you are in fact developing them. There's a difference between training somebody on the kind of the work that they currently do and how to do it incrementally better or quite a bit better versus developing their whole person, if you will. And whether it's speaking, whether it's presentation, whether it's leadership skills and other things will factor into I always say to people, you can just learn just enough to do your job, or you can learn much more than your job demand. And then when the opportunity comes, it'll be very clear that you're interested and qualified and ready to go, right?
Amen. I can relate to that. When I was in the furniture business, I started off as an assistant, and the company was in trouble. And every time there's a problem, when the president asked for somebody to look after it. Everybody take one step backwards and I'd take one step forward. And then I became an assistant manager, and then more problems came along and nobody would take on the job. So I'd volunteer. So then I became a general manager, and then same thing happened. And we were starting to add more stores, and there'd be problems and I'd step forward. So I was made vice president, general manager, and I'm 24, 25. But I've always felt that there's two ways to get into a position of influence and power. One is to wait for it, and the other is to start doing things that are not expected, as exactly what you said, and step up, because there's a shortage of leadership in the world, and anybody who's willing to take the initiative, the world is their oyster. There's opportunity everywhere.
I mean, you can wait until you get a gig before you learn how to play guitar, or you can learn how to play guitar really well, and the gigs will, eventually bump into you, and you'll recognize it. So, in terms of your, I just want to add a little bit of, no, maybe we'll just go to some other photos there. So catch me if you see a photo that you have a story to share that we haven't gotten to yet. Beautiful photos. Wow. Love the colors. There's Bruce. See, if you quiz me which one is Bruce and which one is Brian in this photo, I can tell you that this is Brian right here, right? No,
And
sorry.
That's my sweetheart, Chona, who produced the video for the show and is a photographer and a wildlife photographer, and she specializes in taking pictures of portraits and babies. But she's a sweetheart, and she did a lot of the great photography for the conference. I do want to say that Bruce plays an important role as a leader in our marketing within custom learning. And one thing you'll notice at the conference is the amazing graphics and design. And Sue Grachuk and her team do this remarkable creation every year of an inspiring learning environment at a different hotel. So again, we're blessed by having so many talented people.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing your journey and all of different. Now, let me ask you maybe a couple more quick questions. One is, did we miss a career? You were like a salesperson, a politician, both at the city level, municipal level, as well as provincial level, in the legislative assembly there. And you've been a speakers and trainer and coach and people who develop other people. Was there yet another career that we kind of haven't gotten to, my friend, or is that sort of the journey?
Well, Dune, you missed my Chinese Asian connection.
Oh, we got to go there. We got to go there. I would be shamed if we didn't cover the Chinese connection.
So before I got into public life and was organizing campaigns, I was an assistant to a member of the legislature named George Holem. And George was a leader in the community, and the city announced that they were going to build a freeway through and destroy Chinatown in Calgary. Wow. And not only would they put a freeway, it had a god-awful name. It was called the East-West Downtown Penetrator. So there was a big protest meeting held in Chinatown, which, by the way, in those days was really kind of a slum. It was really not great condition. Big protest meeting held at the Chinese United Church. The old side of China represented by the family associations, of which there's about 40. And then the new Chinese leaders, there's a group called the Senlok Society. So that's a big protest meeting, and they decided they're going to fight this freeway. So they decided to form a Chinatown task force. And they knew they needed somebody for 6 months to organize it. So they came to me and asked me so I would do it. And they went out and collected some cash, and they put it in a bag, and they gave it to me and said, well, we'll pay you. Wasn't much money. I said, fine, that's great. This is exciting. Well, it took us 3 years. And in order to save Chinatown, we had to approve and develop a design brief. In order to develop a design brief, we had to mobilize a significant number of people at every level to pull together this plan. And 3 years. And meanwhile, when we're doing all this, the federal government decided to expropriate 3 blocks in Chinatown for new federal buildings. So we had to relocate all the poor people. At any rate, it was a marvelous experience. 3 years later, the city approved the design brief. It quashed the freeway. And then eventually the community started redeveloping, and I was also involved in building something called Bowside Manor, which is a 12-story building for the working poor. And Chinatown, of course, in Calgary has been a great success. It's spilled up Center Street, it's gone out East Calgary. So they called me. What most people don't know in Calgary is that the first group of Chinese were from Toisan in China, and so they spoke a dialect called Toisanese. Those that come from Hong Kong speak Cantonese, and of course mainland is Mandarin. So the task force, I was the only Lofan, which in Toisan means barbarian. I was the only white person, so they called me a no fun Lofan, and but it was my privilege to be involved with the Chinese community, and it definitely was a turning point for me in terms of community activism. So that was a fun part of my earlier part of my career.
But by the way, being a English-speaking fellow, did you ask him afterwards? He said, "I was fun. I wasn't no fun and low fun. I was fun."
Well, I always thought their abuse was a sign of affection, so it never bothered me.
Yeah, you know, I respect people who know many languages. In my case, Vietnamese is my mother tongue, and then growing up, I selected French as the language that I would learn in school, and so I learned French. And then one day I realized through some actions that I've taken, all of a sudden I now have to learn English as well. So English is actually my third language. My third language.
Well, I'm like you. I honor anybody that speaks a second language. One of my privileges being in public life is I spent over half of my time with minority groups. And if they asked me to speak, I would usually give a couple of sentences in their language, and if I got to know them better, I'd give them the entire speech in their language. So it was a lot of fun trying to master these languages, because nobody ever agreed on everything, but definitely it's been a cool thing to do.
Yeah, again, plug into the humanity of it, and plug into the, again, showing respect through actions rather than just saying, I respect, your community. Well, if you learn some of the language and actually demonstrate it, that's certainly one way to show it, right?
It is absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful. So Brian, at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you take us home. You're going to take us home. You could be, I don't know if you sing or play instruments or act or anything like that. Juggle, if you juggle. But you're going to take us out in just a moment here. But before we do that, I just want to, again, say thanks to our viewers who are watching us live right now. And some of you have been commenting. Thank you so much for that. As well as those who watch the recorded version afterwards. Feel free to comment in there. And, Brian and I'll make sure that Brian sees the comments even afterwards and be able to respond to you at the appropriate time. But thank you so much, Brian, for sharing your journey, which is a very interesting and exciting and very eclectic kind of set of careers that are seemingly quite different. But in some ways, they seem to also connect and feed on each other as well. So thank you for sharing your journey and your stories and your insights with us today. And much appreciated. And with that, I'm going to turn the wheel over to you, and you can take as long as you wish. I don't have a meeting right at this moment, so take us out however you like to take us out, Brian. And when we're done, just hang around in the green room for a moment. I will give you a high five in there.
You bet. Well, Dune, first of all, let me acknowledge you for this. I am in awe of the number of programs you've done with the number of personalities, and I am definitely flattered that you would take time to let me join this group. You do an amazing job. I am impressed by your professionalism, the homework that you did, all of those things. So thanks so much. And thanks for the advice you've given on technology, which I appreciate. So just kind of a final thought. I got to meet many great people, and every day is a journey. One of the people that I met that through not just my church, but also through speaking is Janice Stanfield. And Janice Stanfield is a singer-songwriter from Denver, and she's written some really remarkable new age, new thought songs, beautiful music. But she wrote the song a few years ago called All the Good. And two of the refrain lines are, I cannot do all the good the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. And I absolutely love that, because I think it was written for healthcare. Absolutely. The communities, the people need all the good that can be done at our clinics and our hospitals and our nursing homes and our home health agencies and all the public health agencies. We need to honor our people who make a difference in people's lives, touch people's lives, help people's lives, help them at the end of their life. We need to honor them. And so it's been a privilege to be part of this. I'm not actually a healthcare professional by training, but I've become one by osmosis. And I just encourage all of you to do whatever you can to honor, acknowledge, celebrate, and appreciate people who do this difficult work. I can tell you that there's going to be a giant pandemic of PTSD from our healthcare providers and the painful, demanding, stressful environments they've been working in. So it needs all of us. My friend Lynn Sullivan in Toronto is one of our implementation specialists, said, let's start a kindness pandemic. And I think we start a kindness pandemic by making sure that we treat each other with kindness and compassion. And we do everything we can to honor and celebrate those who do in healthcare. So, Dune, namaste. I honor the light in you. Thanks so much for this opportunity.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Again, folks, you've been listening to Mr. Brian Lee, CSP, Certified Speaking Professional, with many other career tracks, including his life mission on healthcare and providing a better experience for the patients, as well as better engagement and satisfaction for the staff as well. Thank you so much again, Brian.